As is often the case with the average modern, the average man, the simple man, he confuses how the other makes him feel with what the other is, just as he confuses his own abstractions of the phenomenon for the phenomenon itself. He doesn't understand that the abstraction is just a representation, an interpretation of the phenomenon, and it is not a phenomenon. It is not the phenomenon. This is why he can fall into the trap of everything is subjective. There is no such thing as an objective world. In this case, the individual, if he is made to feel sad, understands the others as being a sad person. If he is made to feel angry, then it is the other that is angry. If he is made to feel afraid, threatened, then it is the other who is fearful. And this is where the ever popular method of self-defense, the accusation of fear against what we cannot argue against. The first thing the modern does is accuse it of being afraid. For instance, any comment about women that goes outside the acceptable modern popular understanding is misogynistic. Any comment about the possible nature of what races are that contradicts the popular narrative is automatically a call to violence. This is why a Christian, when trying to understand the atheist, projects himself in the atheist's place. As I analyze what the empathy and the sympathy and antipathy is, and then he imagines himself in his place, and he feels dreadful. He cannot even imagine existing without his belief in God. Or he feels like without a God, there would be no reason for him to be civil, that he would start killing and destroying. And because this is the only way he can understand other, because he's a simpleton, and his imagination cannot go beyond the third level of cognition or third level of intentionality, what he does is he just simply projects himself in the other's position and imagines how he would be or what he would do if he thought what the other thinks, believes in, or if he said what the other is saying. And this is why immediately you see the simpler minds expose themselves through this method of projection, which has little to do with the more sophisticated method of getting into somebody's head, which I described in my the previous bit about empathy. And this is why, again, why Christians, whenever they think about atheism, they think of it as evil, as something that would drive them to madness. So they assume that the other is mad, or that the other is untrustworthy, because they would be not to be trusted if they didn't have this external threat over their heads, keeping them good, keeping them within the social parameters, keeping them within Christian ideals. They are not really truly Christian in the true definition of the word. They're just parroting the Christian faith because they expect to be rewarded for it, or because of peer pressure, because they were brought up that way, or for whatever reason. They don't really, it doesn't come from inside of them. It's not innate. Their goodness, as Christianity teaches, is not innate. This is why communism failed. It was not meant for the human species. The human species cannot behave and think like a bee or an ant. It's impossible. It was pure naivete on the part of Marxism. But all nihilism is pretty much based on a naive, delusional conception of world, because most of it denies world, rejects it, doesn't understand it, has this idealistic conception of the world and of human beings within the world. The Christian knows, he feels it, he senses, he has an intuitive comprehension of himself, even if he can't bring it to consciousness, he can accept it. That without his Christian controlling God, using the carrot stick mechanism, he would revert to something like an animal. He would not be trusted. He would be raping and pillaging for no reason, for just the pleasure of it. So that's how he understands anybody who contradicts his God. And this is the same method all moderns use when their faith is contradicted, is shaken, is threatened. Their delusions about equality, about gender, about race, everything. All of nihilism, like I said, has to bullshit, has to lie. It's inevitable. It cannot survive in the world by rejecting the world. So it has to be fragmented, has to be schizophrenic, has to say one thing and do something else, and then has to find for plausible excuses, clever explanations as to why this is so. And this is the case with the word, the concept beauty. The modern understands the word as what somebody else makes them feel. So somebody is beautiful because they make them feel beautiful. They have no objective comprehension of the word. They cannot connect the word to something outside themselves. They must always understand the word emotionally, subjectively, without any external to them standard. So if somebody makes them feel beautiful, that's what they could call this person. He's beautiful. Just as if somebody makes them feel angry, then it's the other person who is angry, and so forth. But what is the proper understanding of the word beauty? Well, the word beauty has to deal with symmetry. Symmetry of the mind and symmetry of the body. The organism dependent on order, because it is an organization, finds everything and anything which has an order superior to its own attractive. It is attracted by order above itself, and it is repulsed by order beneath itself, where it feels superior to it. And it is certainly repulsed by chaos, by what lacks order, such as randomness. That's what the proper understanding of the word chaos is also. It's not complexity, because that implies a hidden order, and that's what this is how most moderns think of it. Now, in this case, it is order. Beauty is an order above what the organism understands, because it depends on the organism's self-perception also. It's what is ordered is attractive to the organism. What is disordered is repulsive to the organism. That's on an objective from an objective standpoint. From an erotic standpoint, this is slightly modified. Now we're dealing with organ proportionality, and this is why in the self-handicapping we see proportionality going to extremes to create an impression. Here, organ proportionality has to do with what we understand as the hip to waist ratio, or the shoulder to waist ratio. It's a proportionality of body parts. This is very attractive to an organism that sees this as a marker of fitness, because order is difficult to maintain within the flux, within a cosmos tending towards randomness, towards chaos. Therefore, anything above and beyond the average is impressive, it is attractive, it is seductive. Except for physical symmetry, which we can all appreciate, even though some of us deny it. We also have what we call mental symmetry, which we also call being a nice guy, I guess, or being intelligent. Here things become a little more confusing because we can't really witness the symmetry directly, but can only witness it through the expressions of the mind using words. And this is where words can display internal symmetry, internal beauty. Now this, here we can actually connect the eye of the beholder mythology to something else. As I've said in other places, and I've explained what I meant in detail, which I can't do here. A persona, a personality, is the different organs and their hierarchy and how they interrelate. So you can conceptualize it as organ symmetry or organ proportionality. Now this creates a demeanor, a certain attitude, a certain, because this organ hierarchy creates personality, which is then allowed to express itself fully, or it stifles, it controls itself, and due to social external reasons. And we have what we call the character, but that's another issue. So this organ proportionality creates a certain demeanor, and this is appreciated by somebody who shares in this proportionality. So you appreciate in other what you most appreciate in yourself. If you like yourself, if you dislike yourself, you appreciate in the other what you most think you lack in yourself, and you try to compensate it for it by finding another. By far the first is the most noble, the strongest form of appreciation. So here what we have is a psychological bonding, agape. This is agape, this is friendship, which is far more stronger than eros, which is based on the like I said, the mind numbing of the fight flight mechanism, so as to permit copulation. So eros is like, it's irrational, as is the sacrifice of self for some other which you identify with, but may not be like you, based on ideological delusions and brainwashing. So beauty is the appreciation of order and the appreciation of proportionality. Now proportionality has to do with potentiality. That is, depending on what is out of proportion, it points to a potential in that area. That's why self-handicapping is so effective. It implies a potential in excess of to the normal. And this is also why we can appreciate a beautiful painting or a nice view. Because of the view, we see the expanse of space, and we see in it the potential. Of course, let's say we're looking at a beautiful scenery of a forest. We don't see the dead corpses at the base of the forest. We don't see the bugs, the mosquitoes. We don't see the predator there. But we only see the general picture from a distance. So from a distance, it looks ideal. It looks serene. It looks pristine. It looks full of benefit and no cost. And that's the seduction of scenery. Or we might appreciate the symmetry, the order, how the different patterns connect and interrelate, reminding us of everything that participates in our existence, in bringing us to life and maintaining us in life. And so we appreciate that on that level. It is this unrestriction to our choices which we find appealing. And this is how we interpret freedom. as that which does not restrict us. It's a form of, it's a sensation of power, that we are so powerful that nothing restricts us, that we are not held back by nothing. Nothing stands in our way. Of course, for the modern, the definition also takes on a different role as liberation from the past, which is a restriction. The modern likes the idea of being not determined by anything that precedes his birth, his or her birth. So he feels that freedom means this liberation from his past, the sum of all nurturing, which is nature. In fact, that's what he means. He means liberation from nature, from precedent, so he can reinvent himself, where all his actions have benefit and no cost, where his responsibilities are minimal. The risks are minimized by the intervening state. He can do and say and act in any way which does not inhibit the same for his neighbor, because this, ironically, this independence is very interdependent. It relies on others to remain functional, which is a contradiction of itself. The main function of this misunderstanding of the word is to rip it from its earthly roots, which is the past, because the modern feels so ashamed of what he is, so dissatisfied with what he is. He wants to erase it because the present presence is a manifestation of past. He wants to dismiss the past as accidental, and that's why he also denies the relevance of appearance, because appearance is the manifestation of this past. He wants to cover it up. He wants to bury it under words. He wants under symbols. He wants to redefine self. He wants to wear symbols as his new mask, his new identity, and then play the part as if it was genuine, it was honest.